What about the gag order possibility and then the change of forum possibility here? Because Trump can't get a fair trial in the Manhattan courthouse.
A couple of things that strike me. One, as Trump enters the courthouse, he throws up a fist and waves at his supporters. So he didn't enter from some back alley or anything else.
Did you see what he said right now? He's got on Truth Social, very unfair venue, should be moved. What do I always say? We got our WOR audience in NYC. What do I always say is the stronghold of sanity? The Staten Island, my friends. I had a lot of classmates in high school from Staten Island. Trump wants it to be moved to Staten Island.
Yeah, well, and that makes total sense because, and let me take it outside of the Trump arena just for a moment. Lawyers all talk about forum shopping. And for those of you who have not thought about this before, because you probably haven't filed lawsuits or thought about where to file lawsuits, we all have the right to a jury of our peers. But every peer group is not the same. Buck, we were talking about off air, down on the Florida Panhandle, where I spend a lot of my time. They say the further north you go, the more south you get in Florida. That is Donald Trump country. I rip Joe Scarborough all the time because he used to represent that area. The minute that Donald Trump walked into a courthouse in the Panhandle of Florida, they would start this case. He would be found not guilty in 5 minutes. He would walk out. A jury of Donald Trump's peers in any red state, rural area, would immediately find him not guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. A jury of New York City left-wing liberals is not and has never been Donald Trump's peer, right? So forum shopping, for those of you who are not familiar with the idea, is you want to, and I used to, deal with this some as a defense attorney, a plaintiff's lawyer wants to file a lawsuit in the best possible jurisdiction to bring his claim. And I practice law, some of you may know this, in the U.S. Virgin Islands. It's called the plaintiff's paradise. Average juror has an 8th grade education. Every juror, just about, knows the family of people who are suing big corporations. So if you could sue American Airlines, for instance, you wanted to file that lawsuit in the Virgin Islands. We just talked, Buck, a lot about the Alec Murdaugh case. The reason why he got so wealthy before his life fell apart was because South Carolina allowed you to file, my understanding is, any lawsuit in any county in the entire state, regardless of whether you had a direct connection, right? Usually, in order to bring a lawsuit, for people out there who are not aware, you have to have a connection to the area where the lawsuit is being brought. You wanted to bring the cases there.
John Edwards, people forget this. We brought him up before because he is the precedent on the federal side for the campaign finance issue that they're now stretching and making a local issue in New York for Trump. But John Edwards built his wealth by forum shopping and suing obstetricians effectively. And he was so successful. This is who the Democrats wanted to make president. John Edwards was so successful at suing doctors, irrespective of whether there was real malpractice, by the way, that it became almost impossible for women to get prenatal care in the state of South Carolina.
North Carolina.
Pardon me.
John Edwards is one of the most successful trial attorneys of all time. And this is very commonplace. So it would be, if you were, and the reason why I bring this up is, if you were trying to get Donald Trump and you just said, hey, where should we file this suit? Where should we charge him with a crime? New York City would be one of the 3 or 4 best venues you could possibly find. San Francisco would be great. The most liberal places imaginable would be the most likely to return to you left-wing jurors who would hate Trump and be likely to find him guilty. Now, jury selection is more art than science. It's possible. Buck, what did 20% of New York City vote for Trump? Is that roughly probably the math on the larger population of New York City? So there's still a 1 in 5 chance that you could get a Trump supporter on a jury, but the odds are stacked massively in Alvin Bragg's favor. And so I'm sure that one of the things Trump will try to do is get this case removed from Manhattan. Who wants, let's be honest, wants this case Like, this is a judge's dream. One of the biggest cases that you could possibly ever get. I doubt that a judge is going to grant that change of venue. That will then be, once you make, so people out there understand, a big part of what will go on in the near future is there will be a series of motions filed by Trump's legal defense team, much of which will probably be rejected. But in order to create an appealable issue, you need to develop all of this motion practice so that you can appeal it later, even if it's rejected by the trial courts as you move through the process. And for those of you out there that are at all interested in the legal process, in the same way that the OJ trial kind of opened a lot of Americans' eyes to what the criminal justice system actually looks like, and frankly, the same way that we basically got a civil procedure guide in the 2000 presidential election, the battle between Bush and Gore over the Florida election, and how rapidly that moved through our legal process. This will be sort of a way to follow and understand the civil procedure process as all of this plays out.
This is going to be the biggest legal circus around the equivalent of a parking ticket, and not even really, because a parking ticket you probably parked in the wrong place, that anyone has ever seen in their entire life. I mean, this is the biggest trial of a non-crime that has ever I don't know if there's ever been one bigger in the history of certainly in the modern history of the country. This is completely insane what they're doing here and what they're putting the country through.
And I think you said something well too, Buck. This is about embarrassing Trump.
Yeah, of course.
It's not a coincidence what they're going after him for. It's for alleged sexual, interaction with two women that he denies, but it's about humiliating.
But we also have to absolutely, by the way, that's why they've loved talking about the porn star thing. And remember everybody, they elevated Michael Avenatti, disgraced, convicted felon who stole millions of dollars from his clients, including a client in a wheelchair that he was representing. I mean, Avenatti was as scummy a lawyer and human being as you could find if you searched really far and wide.
And frankly, so is Michael Cohen, who now is the linchpin of this entire case. Right? But he's also a convicted felon.
But Avenatti was elevated on CNN, and to Tucker's eternal credit, he just always called him the creepy porn lawyer before all the stuff came out about stealing from the clients, because he knew that Avenatti was scummy. Democrats talked about making this guy president. And you know why? Because every time he appeared, it was all, my client had sex with Donald Trump, who's so dirty and he's so scummy and the whole thing. And libs just loved the whole thing. They were all about it. But Clay, what I think we're not us, but I think people are not really focused on enough here is now you got to imagine you're the prosecutor in Georgia and you're the special counsel. Even if, and this is giving them, and I don't need the email saying, Buck, the fix is in, they hate Trump too. I'm sure they do. Even if there was any part of their mind that was like, look, the law's not really on our side here. The tie goes to the defendant. Trump, I hate him, but now the pressure is, oh, you don't have the stones to bring a criminal charge against him for your case? Think about the politics now of the pressure on the other criminal investigations of Donald Trump. Their facade or their ability to say, it has to be overwhelming. We don't prosecute former presidents and interfere in an ongoing election unless it is, oh, actually, apparently we do. So now their ability, Clay, to point to that, I think, is basically gone.
I think that's an important point, because the first person to break 240 years of legal precedent, even if you are a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, I like to think, it may be unfair, that Alvin Bragg, it may be giving him too much credit, that Alvin Bragg at least contemplated the radical move that he was making and still decided to do it. A lot of DAs, even if they wanted to get Trump, would have looked at this and said, I just can't upset 240 years of American judicial respect for political opposition to do this.